welcome back to the MGSN cast podcast. And, we're doing a recap right now of DEMO25 that we just had in Canada with all our incredible workshops here. But right now, we're actually in the original place where we actually filmed our first podcast here at Green Mountain Inn in Stowe, Vermont.
Great place to pick. That startup was in 1833 when this inn, a couple of entrepreneurs got together, saw that Stowe was a growing resort town. We're beautifully set in the mountains here, the Green Mountains. We're drinking their Green Mountain roast, nice roast coffee.
Great coffee.
So very, very poetic that we're in this place where entrepreneurship thrived.
Yeah, and we started a lot of concept development in that original podcast, and now to be back, kind of recapping what we did in Canada and all the workshops. There was a lot of product development. So, like we've been showing on all of these podcasts, that the entire pathway for a startup, going from concept development to research to product development to going to market, testing out your products, getting feedback. Potentially some of these startups even moving to the place where we can bring them to Silicon Valley in the fall. It's really incredible to see kind of the progress there. But let's talk about Canada, though, because we had some great developments up there.
Well, I tell you what, Mac, one of the things that's really impressive is, and I always give this baseball analogy. You're like the Ohani of product development. It's very important for a startup or for even an enterprise. Google. I just started working with the Google Studio product lines. Google, these products are constantly being developed by long established entities, and so you need it to meet the changing market conditions. And product development is, but you need a product manager. And in Mac's case, he is managing products from other companies. He's managing his own products, and he's also a product developer. And that's it's rare to have that two hats.
Yeah, I appreciate that analogy there. It's very rare. Obviously in baseball, it's very rare to find a pitcher and someone that also bats. But I think in the development world, it's very true. It's the same thing with, you got to play good offense, you got to play good defense. And I think when we talk about the development phase, obviously people want to just get right to market. But then there's the other part of product development that you have to do a lot of research, you have to do a lot of thought, you have to do a lot of critiquing and feedback. Sometimes startups get too bogged down in that too. And you need someone that's, more offense focused. So I think the great thing about these workshops is you kind of play both, where it's like you have a goal in mind. You make sure everyone's very focused on that. But again, you got to use when you bring people together, let's give feedback to each other. Let's critique each other. Let's fine tune this product. So when we go to market, we've at least done as much work on that as we can foresee what the market's going to tell us. And I think that was really important to know and to show people up there in Canada as we're doing those meetings and holding those workshops.
Well, listen, you had the right assembly of people. You had the product developers, you had the product managers, and you had product counsel there. And our role is always to say, hey, you're not ready for Silicon Valley. You're not ready to put a product out there because you think you have a prototype or you think you have an MVP, but you're a little short on it. And if you go into the marketplace, you'll get ravished. That's on there. And, you really get very little airtime when you're making presentations to funds that are in Silicon Valley. And then the real question comes down to where are you with respect to funding? As you know, in our incubator, we emphasize to quite a tune of we recruit for those who are really open to the bootstrapping model, because we think you shouldn't be going to an angel investor until we should go into maybe a strategic investor, and we're very big on that. We're big on the strategic investors. And people say, what's the difference between a strategic investor and an angel investor? Well, they're quite pronounced. An angel investor is taking a piece of equity with the idea that at some point in time, a VC company is going to take that piece out and then take it up to the next level. They'll take care of getting to the MVP. A strategic investor is a little bit better because they're not going to take out an equity piece because they have a vested interest in your product development as they're going to utilize that in their business models that are on there. And it's much more important to have that sort of saying, okay, look, I'll sign a co-development agreement with you. You can take all the IP, you can do it however you want to structure that with a strategic investor that's on there. But they're looking for the products to come to market versus the company coming to market that's on there. And sometimes they're looking for the company to come to market because they want that company in as a what's called a captive vendor in their service. So these are some of the issues that we discussed in the workshops when we were having our classes. Because what's great about the Thinkland workshops is that you do bring the right professional people to sort of the young entrepreneurs. And I understand a lot of the product development that you were working on. A lot of people don't realize the hats that our friend here had. So he had to work with the logistics company, Pillow and Tea, and their hospitality wing because you're doing long hours. You're in this retreat. That's our model. When the KLG model is to take the people out of their environment, whether they're working remotely in a home environment or in a public library or in a studio that they have or an office that they've retained. Let's get them out of the day in and day out grind because productivity gets, and think of it like a retreat. These workshops, we take them into, sometimes we've held workshops in France. We've held workshops in Abu Dhabi. In Dubai, excuse me, and in Taipei. There were very good workshops in Taipei, and getting people out of their day in and day out grind gets those creative juices flowing. And you need the hospitality sector in there because you need to have that breather. You need to have a nice place to go to dinner. You need a day off, especially if you're seeing like a little bit of a block in the development piece that's on there. And your collaboration with Pillow and Tea in the workshop up in Canada was absolutely out of this world.
And I love that you brought up this term MVP a couple of times. And for the people watching, we talked about this a little bit in our rapid fire podcast, but the minimally viable product is super important. Getting your product development team to, you really got to get your product basically to a minimal threshold to be able to go to market. And I think when you talk about, hey, whether it's strategic investors or strategic partnerships, again, I think the key to a lot of this startup culture and startup formation is knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at. I think that's the bigger thing. I think you see a lot of these successful companies. You have one guy that's maybe more of an engineer. Is able to make a really good product, but then you need that whole other aspect, which is sales and marketing, to actually brand and get the thing to market. And I think a lot of the stuff that we do in development. You could see in our previous podcast where we showed a meeting of our Till Academy where we were actually doing the critiques. It's one thing for all the product and engineers to be giving feedback, but it's another thing to bring in product counsel from the legal and from the law and from all these other perspectives. But then also from Thinkland's perspective, when we're working within these meetings, we kind of come from a marketing and kind of a branding perspective too. So it's like you gotta have the different pieces. And when you talk about strategically partnering yourself, it's good to know, hey, we don't have the engineering down. We got to partner ourselves with some engineers. We don't have the legal side, the legal framework understanding. We need to partner ourselves with some lawyers. And I think that's something that for Thinkland, we really try to find those startups that we really believe in have really good products, but maybe need a little more help with the marketing and the publishing. And the sales aspect.
And that's important because, sometimes, as you mentioned, that young entrepreneurs, when they hear, oh, you guys are going to Silicon Valley, let's jump on board with that. Just get me an investor and I'll take my creative juices and my engineering staff and I'll take it to the next. But look, we had to put the brakes on some of the product developments because we said, wait a minute. Your product can be much more enhanced if you spend some more time in the development stage. And frankly, if you have to bootstrap it. If you want to go into debt financing, you can. But we don't agree with that. We think that, if you're saying you have the engineering on this and you just need backup, Well, we told some, we listened that we have, thanks to some of the work that you performed yourself. If you want to take a little credit for this, for the Global Capability Center in India. So we can get you some cost-effective solutions there, but you have to accept the fact that you can't go out and make a representation to investors that you have a prototype when you really have a beta. So what you have is, you mentioned before, the verification, validation, research and development. So you get a business idea, concept generation. Then you got, most unfortunately, so many good ideas. And we've seen this over the 40 years that I've been product counsel. You just see that the great ideas, they die in the vine because they get a lot of giddiness. And I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then they don't, maybe because they just didn't do enough due diligence or whatever, they get discouraged or they don't want to take it past that. What I like about every single one of the companies that are in the KLG incubator is they're really committed to the validation research. I mean, before Mac is fan first media, but it is the leading, hottest sports media and entertainment as well that's out there, because people are getting a little tired of the canned presentations, take it or leave it, that major media companies are presenting to them. With tech and tech companies like yours, you can create a fan first media. So you have your fan first media, BCFF. Now, market conditions changed right underneath our feet. And we're not going to get into that because we have lawyers looking into what we consider some transgressions on varied vendors who are to provide a media outlet. And but at the end of the day, if you're a guy like Mac who built his followers up to the point where they were ready for either affiliated marketing partners or for sponsorships. We discussed this. We just had, Mac, we did, fortunately, at one point in time, you were in a room with 6 lawyers, during the week,
that's a great example though. The fan-based media. And I think overall, when we talk about where Thinkland has tried to develop their products, one thing that we kind of intuitively did was to not stranglehold ourselves to one single product. And I think for startups too, I think they come up with an idea and they really are passionate about it, which is good. But sometimes it can get you too kind of closed-minded to what you're trying to put on the market, and things change and evolve. The market changes, the product changes. Sometimes what you set out to do, at the end of the day, no one's buying it, and you got to pivot. And I think for Thinkland, what started as just a few fan accounts within the college football space ended up becoming a place where we got about 30,000 followers, 30,000 audience members into our community, and then ended up in this space, it ended up being one of the products that, hey, we thought we were going to be in concept generation and research and development for a long time. We were ready to monetize it, really quickly. Right. Versus other products that I think, okay, we need to slow it down. We thought we were going to be in the first quarter going to the market. We need to do a little bit more research, a little more development. The fan-based media was incredible because, within the first couple years, we're able to start monetizing with merchandise. We're able to open up another partnership with another media outlet, Equals Daily. We were able to do all these different things, create a new podcast for all our fan-based, audience members. And I think those are the things that, you got. Because of that flexibility we set out, we get into single frame mindset. We didn't have that. We were open to new ideas, open to new things. I think the market at the end of the day is the thing that's going to tell you what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong.
Always does.
We could talk about product development all day long, but until you set out the market, it will tell you. And what the market told us was, hey, fan-based media, this is where the value is. This is where you can monetize. So we leaned a little bit more into that. And I think I guess the lesson there is for startups and founders and entrepreneurs is don't pigeonhole yourself. It's good to have passion, but be open. Be open more than anything to new ideas, whether that's in product development, but also, especially once you go to market, be very open to pivoting. And if you got to start over, that's what it's about. It's okay to fail. It's better to go to the market and get out there and fail than to not, accomplish that in the first place. So go out there, be open, and take some chances there.
Hey, you know what? We're going to pick this up on another studio-based podcast, but one of the most dominant features that, and it really it clearly was an issue, a major issue in Thinkland Demo Asia 2025, AI. But in these workshops, it was immensely dictatorial with respect to how those workshops were structured and how they were conducted. And more importantly, I guess, is the way that it's changing the market to a position that if you don't get in front of this and dominate it, it will push you aside and move you aside. And, look, we work a lot with coders, obviously, and we're seeing the ones who are scared or frightened of the fact that AI, especially in some of the studio platforms that we've been examining, one of the great skill sets that Thinkland has is when they create a digital product for a client is that you're getting the best mix and most importantly, the best engineering. And what people don't realize is an architectural basis as to how you're going to choose all these varied technologies and put them into one sort of delivery platform. So AI is, and I believe that's going to be one of our podcasts right here from beautiful Stowe, Vermont. It's very active out here. It is the start of the summer, folks, and people are summering it up out here. We've always enjoyed this aspect of it. It ties very tightly into. It is the case. Thinkland is hosting us here in this beautiful hotel, and I think you collaborated a lot with Pillow and Tea to set this up.
Yeah. No, we're happy to present obviously the Thinkland demo, but a huge shout out to Pillow and Tea. They are the team that's doing all the logistics here. Not only my team, but all the startups and all the entrepreneurs that have come to Demo25. They're doing all the travel logistics, all the hospitality, our daily schedules. I mean, just syncing up the tech. I mean, it's really incredible, this travel tech company, Pillow and Tea, what they're able to do and what they're able to package together for us to have a very seamless workation. And I think, with everything that we're doing with development-wise, it's a perfect balance between, hey, you're getting out of the office, you're able to collaborate, you're able to network, you're able to, build new strategic partnerships, but also you're able to be productive. I mean, I think I was more productive these past 2 weeks and the previous month. I mean, we're able to really get down, with everything that we're doing. And there's a lot of developments going on and a lot of assessments to be done. I think that's the key where we were just talking about. There's some that, hey, we need to slow down. There's some that we need to speed up,
Right.
And I think that's the key is that when you get out of the everyday work grind, sometimes it's good to give yourself a little more perspective on, okay, this thing we've been working on too long. We even if it's wrong, let's get it to market. And then there's some other things where you're like, okay, this isn't ready yet. And I think that's really important to what we're doing. And again, shout out to Pillow and Tea. Go check out their wonderful team, pillowandtea.com. They're doing a lot of cool things in the travel tech area.
By the way, that's a great way for us to sort of segue into, because we have these meetings are wrap-up meetings. They're very important. Lawyers love wrap-up meetings because you get to memorialize what occurred, what didn't occur, and what deliverables are going to be met. And you get to set the tone. You don't just pat yourself on the back and say, we had a good demo, we had a good workshop, so that we're really preparing. Because believe it or not, Silicon Valley demo, it's right around the corner.
I think that's the key, though. It's like with these wrap-ups, it's not about just saying, hey, this is what we did. It's about action items. It's about what do we got to do next. I think, anytime you wrap up a meeting, it's about, okay, what do we have to take? What are we doing now? And I think when we look at a lot of the stuff that we developed in Canada and here and even in Stowe, it's okay, we have to look ahead to Silicon Valley. We have to look ahead to see what products, what companies are ready for prime time and which ones need a little bit of work. And I think we have a good understanding of that now, but now it's about grinding out those things. And I think, in our next podcast, we're going to talk a lot about AI. You could tell this is something that has influenced, I think, almost every company that we had up here at Demo25.
Yeah.
It's the AI capabilities and all these different tools that are starting to influence things that we never thought we're going to be influenced by AI.
And the followers out there in MGSN, and by the way, MGSN, thank you so much for covering the workshops. We're hoping that the followers, what we love about MGSN is if there are people out there who just got laid off and maybe they're in a later stage in life and they're working and they're just not ready to stop right now, or there are many of these young millennials who are just sick and tired. We just heard a magnificent podcast, an AI podcast. It's a product of Thinkland. And we heard this. We got the inside scoop, I guess, so to speak. But, one of the things that you're out there in MGSN land, they offer this free content so that you can start looking at how you can transition from an employee that's just looking over the shoulders to whether that next layoff is going to come in, or taking control of your employment, taking control of that through entrepreneurship. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not meant to be, I'm not this. There's a lot of learning. There's nobody who is frozen out of this opportunity that's on there. And those dead end jobs can be converted into funding opportunities. And we'll show you how that gets done in some of the articles that we'll be writing for MGSN. But one of the things I wanted to point out in this, we started here, and you guys got to see when we started this workshop. We met over at the Thinkland campus, and we went through what the agenda was going to be, and we met with Pillow and Tea and how they were going to coordinate with product developers, product counsel from all over the globe who had to either be here, up in Canada, or they were going to be logistically beamed in through varied platforms so that they could be, and you'll see this podcast, this seamless validation research that came to task when you're building out. In this particular case, this Till Academy, which is being built out by a group of very seasoned entrepreneurs and academics and lawyers who are going to teach people who are in this position, who are followers at MGSN, and frankly, wherever. But you don't have to take that dead end position. You don't have to go through the merry-go-round, hire today, fire tomorrow. You can take control over this. And passion's the point. And as Mac points out, that slate of business ideas, because the market will control what it is, and also how rapidly it is changing. What you saw here, folks, if you followed this WordCamp presentation on MGSN, was the debut of a product that Mac and his team were working on. And it's perfect for companies that are out there. Companies who say, I can't afford to have the studio set up and put a team out in Stowe, Vermont to get the view and the ambience. Yeah. It's called the Rapid Fire Podcast. We're going to talk about that and in the AI context, but you're going to see folks that in our next you're going to see, actually, if you go on to the MGSN site, I believe it's on, right?
Yeah, MGSN.net. And then if you follow MGSN on Facebook, Instagram, you're going to see all these. The Rapid Fire Podcast is a great way for you to show kind of real time what we're doing. Right. Because a lot of this, the podcast we're doing right now, there's a lot of post production, and then it's more of a traditional podcast. But the Rapid Fire really follows that influencer format where it's like, hey, we're in real time, we're recording. This is our development. So again, if you want to follow MGSN, we cover these things, and we cover current events live in real time. Go to MGSN on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course MGSN.net.
Hey, before we wrap up, and just a little segue into this, listen. This guy, this young entrepreneur, he's created 3 products. He's really streamlined the mobile design. He works a lot with Pillow and Tea on this. They design a studio. So yes, you can come to a nice place to spend some money to set up this nice view. But also, they're really good at setting up in your office. In your office, this RFP that they developed. If you're a business and you want to get it out there, and you don't know how to do it, they're going to set up. They got a mobile office. They set it right. They have a whole design team that comes in, and very quickly. And I mean, when I say team, this is a nimble team. They 1 or 2 people come in, and their designers coming from their offices in that great part of Boston that has always driven technology, Boston Tech. And they'll set that right up in the little corner of your office. They'll set this beautiful little office in. You'll get your RFPs in so that you can push those things out So if you're a corporation out there and you're an SME market and you say, hey, I can't do this. This podcast is way out of my league. Got to call these guys up because they're going to get you online. That at the minute you sign on the dotted line, you'll be an RFP and all the way. Another thing I think you guys will take care of this on the next one is the transformation of the AI podcast. Now that is a separate and distinct thing. We're going to talk about that as a product that they developed. That's on that. And we'll got some very exciting news, folks, because you see the Till Academy, which we'll talk about. I think it's another podcast that we're going to shoot. We're going to try to shoot here, studio style. The Till Academy was in concept generation for about 2 years. A lot of research, blah, blah, blah. You know, these lawyers making a lot of money. I really want to do this. It's a great idea. It's legacy, blah, blah, blah. But it's now in full scale validation research. It is now in serious product development. That's on there. We are really, really pleased with the guidance that your company provided, particularly in the meetings that occurred in your campus, the Thinking Campus, where the lawyers came in from Asia, and we just solidified that. But there was an exciting aspect because the Till Academy, we needed a publisher. And then Thinkland has been developing this Thinkland publishing house, and they're going to be publishing, where we got now at 5 books that are ready in the publishing from really global leaders in data, global leaders in IP, global leaders in the SME market, and global leaders in the the South market. So this is going to be really exciting for people who want to say, hey, I want in on this global expansion, and I want in on, I'm in the market that the population is shrinking, but I got a good product. How do I get it to the market that's even broader? Well, that's gonna be taught at Till Academy. But there's another new development, a product development that got burnished out of concept generation. And when Mac was telling you how quick things can go or how slow things can go, you have setbacks, you got to be resilient. We do teach that, and we're teaching it in there. But here's the thing that's real exciting, and I'm not going to steal the buzz out of this thing. I'm going to let that happen in the next podcast. But Max got a groundbreaking, you heard it, the ground is shaking, groundbreaking news that we're going to make out. And it is intense, and it involves AI. But in the meantime, I think I talked enough. I'm going to have a sip of this magnificent coffee, and I think you got something to say.
Yeah, well, definitely stay tuned because our upcoming podcast that Jerry's kind of talking about is, you know, we have a lot of products that are, you know, being developed that we're ready to announce, but also the publishing house. I think that's key to not just the podcast that we're doing, but the actual physical products, but also the digital products, the most important. Because when we talk about publishing house, people are like, well, what do you mean, Mac? You're going to Amazon Books and we have to go purchase a physical. No, digital publishing now is everything. It's social media, it's ebooks, it's, you know, white papers, it's articles, it's, you know, social media posts, it's everything online. Your online digital presence is, you know, everything's open for publishing now. And I think that's key. And I just want to say one more shout out before we wrap this first one up and before we get into those products, which I think are super, super important for folks to, you know, go check out in our upcoming podcasts. But shout out to the Global Capability Center and the GCC that we formed within that, which is the Global Creative Center. You go to globalcreativecenter.com. They work hand in hand with Pillow and Tea. The Pillow and Tea does all the logistics on the ground as we're filming this, you know, beautiful podcast right now. But what then Pillow and Tea does is seamlessly package all the things that we do, the footage, all this incredible stuff, sends it over to our team, the Global Capability Center, and they do all the post-production. So when we talk about, you know, hey, reach out to Thinkland, we got all these different entities. If you want to go on the road, you want to have a workshop, you want to, you know, film some podcasts, we have the strategic partners for you to do it at low cost and at a small scale. And we can again package all those different things that you need to digitally publish your work. So, you know, we have Pillow and Tea, which does all the, you know, physical and the travel logistics. And then we also have the Global Capability Center that does all the post-production and all of this media that we're into. So really, again, it's always important to strategically partner yourself because we can't do this alone. You know, everyone just sees on YouTube right now, me and Jerry talking here, but there's a whole team on the ground here that's helping us out. And there's a whole team over in Asia that are doing all our post-production. And it allows us to, again, scale all our media, scale all our content, and, you know, ultimately be more productive.
You bet, my friend. Well, listen, We got another meeting here. So I guess you have anything you want to say to our friends before we go?
I think the only thing to say is go start your startups.